What we learned about Islam from Pat Condell. This is how I should have been making a video on the subject from the beginning. I tried previously using Mr. Condell's own words, and that was wrong. My first exposure to Pat Condell was hearing him on a podcast. I don't remember when or where, but it was several years ago. This was before the Ben Affleck, Bill Maher, and Sam Harris debacle that led many of us to change our minds on many subjects. Although having never been a religious person and never a fan of the terror that people in the name of religion have plagued the world, I have not been exposed to such harsh criticism, and the first listen to Pat Condell made me wince. It was an eye-opener, to say the least. It was quite possibly the start of my awakening about the regressive left. Although nobody had called it that at the time, I had considered myself part of it. It made me rethink progressive topics. These were audio podcasts of his videos, and with further listens to and reflection about Pat's views on Islam, were decisive in how I perceived the modern Muslim community. At this point, I need to say that most reasonable and civilized people that I hope to count myself as one do not consider all people of any religion as inherently bad or evil. People all over the world are good and thoughtful and want to respect the rights of their fellow human. There are those who categorically despise others because of their faith. This, of course, is not unique to a small sliver of Western Christians, because all over the world there are those who hate others who do not believe as they do. Oftentimes this is the members of one sect of Islam hating the other, as well as with some sects of Christianity, i.e. Protestants and Catholics. The simple act of criticizing a religion or beliefs is not in any way bigoted or wrong. The foundations of modern Western society is based on the Enlightenment, where the authority of the church no longer had the last word in any matter leading to the scientific revolution and, well, modern civilization. Now that we have that bit of common sense out of the way, we can turn to what we learned about Islam from Pat Condell. Pat is not the first nor the only person critical of Islam. There is now a long list of outsiders, those who were never Muslim, as well as many who are now part of the faith or previously of the faith. For years, he has pointed out the inherent problems with Sharia law, that it not only is incompatible with liberal Western democracies, but with human rights in general, no matter where you live. Sharia law bolsters a misogynist culture that treat women as not just second class, but as the property of their father or husband. He has many videos that you can view that intelligently spell out the many problems of Sharia law. Please see the link to his channel in the description. But that's only the start, because he warns that societies, mostly in Europe, are doomed to seriously fail because of the regressive left bending over backwards to portray all Muslims as wonderful people and us terrible racist white people as inherently evil and in need of being taken over by the former. This subject is best summed up in his video, aptly titled, "Nothing to Do with Islam." All acts of hatred and terrorism done in the name of Islam or Muhammad, of course having nothing to do with Islam. You see, the authoritarian left know what people think. They are mind readers. They know that when a Muslim yells Allahu Akbar, then blows himself up along with dozens of innocent people, including children, this has nothing to do with Islam. The regressive left are privy to know others' personal thoughts, so when Muslim men in Europe rape children because they don't know any better, this has nothing to do with Islam. This point I am inclined to agree with to some extent. When you have a culture so backwards, uncivilized, and so out of step with basic human rights, well then maybe it has nothing to do with Islam. However, the liberal class, who I am now partly ashamed to call myself a member of, say these men are such lesser human beings that they cannot distinguish right from wrong. They are the bigots, not the ones who criticize these horrible deeds. Selwyn Duke writes on theamericanThinker.com, links below, "Islam is not the problem," proclaims the left, and if you say otherwise, you're a racist, even though Muslim is not a race. Yet a fact remains: virtually all the world's terrorists today claim Islamic motivations. So if Islam belief is not the problem, are we then left with a genetic explanation for this violence? Is there something inherent in the groups generally embracing Islam, Arabs, Persians, Indonesians, Punjabis, etc., that would account for it? And hey, I'm just asking, it's the liberals who profess ideas suggesting this possibility. He's got a point there. He says virtually all because there are a small percent of acts of terrorism that are not done on behalf of Islam. These same people on the left constantly remind us of our own checkered past, how hundreds of years ago Christianity was responsible for heinous crimes against humanity. All true, but if we somehow were forced to live in 14th century Europe, then maybe this news would be cogent. But we aren't, and we don't. Europe, the Americas, and many parts of the world have been improving pushing human rights generation after generation to the point that we are now attempting to cover the very smallest percentage of the population with new laws and rights. This to the point of excess, such as Canada's Bill C-16 law, as well as New York City human rights law, where it is now a crime to not call someone by their preferred gender pronoun. But back to Islam. Muslims demand Sharia law wherever they live. They want to limit our free speech so that they are not offended, even though, as Pat Condell has repeatedly pointed out, that they are possibly the most easily offended people on the planet. They want to force the rest of the civilized world to eat halal foods, the most cruel and barbaric system of slaughter ever devised by the backwards world. Pat Condell has, I believe, helped to open many minds to the hypocrisy of and the terrible ideas of what is known as Islam. Please start a dialogue with those unfamiliar with this subject to help open their eyes to the cancer on society that is known as Islam. We are not criticizing people in general who happen to have been born to a certain faith. Some believe we have free will, and with this gift of being able to act against bad ideas, move forward and do your part in continuing Pat Condell's noble efforts. Thank you for watching this video, and please consider hitting the like button, subscribing, or helping out with this channel by pitching in on our new Patreon page. Goodbye.